Hey everybody, welcome to the very delayed class, World Chess Championship 2021. We always have technical difficulties, but I'm innocent. As you all know, the World Championship, there's a Wikipedia page that explains the format and all that stuff. It's going to be held in Dubai. It starts November 24th. And it finishes December 16th or earlier, if match is already over. It's a 14-game match, although not really. It's just first to get 7.5. So if Nepomniachtchi, for example, gets 7.5 out of 8, match is over. They won't have to play the rest of the games. That's the most likely score, except for one thing. Yeah. So Magnus is trying to retain his title. His opponent, Ian Nepomniachtchi, he qualified by winning the candidates, which we're going to look at. So Ian is 31 years old right now, and Magnus will be 31 during the event on November 30th. So Ian is very slightly older, and they've actually played each other many times, even when they were like 13 years old, because they're the same age. So they were playing in the World Youth and probably European youth and so forth. Now, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, 90% of chess the last 2 or 3 years has been online, and most of those are blitz, bullet, and rapid. So actually finding games that are recent between these two is not easy if you want to look at slow chess, which this is. So I totally discount the other games because they don't have any time on their clock. But if the games last 3, 4, 5 hours, that's similar to what's going to happen in the match. Now, this match was scheduled for the end of 2020, but because of COVID, they're having it in 2021, and they're having it during the festival in Dubai, where there's going to be all kinds of stuff going on that's not chess related. Yeah. So if you look at your screen here, hopefully people on the internet can see this, the cross table and stuff. They had a candidates tournament, which they started, and then halfway through they stopped. Then they waited a year, then they started it again. And the winner of that match was Ian, so he plays Carlsen. And not only did he get the most points, he also had the most wins and the best tie breaks. He had everything. So yeah, he scored +4, and he won the tournament. Or I'm sorry, +3. He actually had 5 wins and 2 losses. So that's incredible. So many decisive games in just 14 games. Half of them were decisive. So he actually won with +3. MVL came second with +2, and so forth. You can see the results there. Now, previous match, unfortunately, between Magnus and Fabi, and Magnus and Karyakin, both ended 6-6. And the Magnus-Fabi match had 12 draws. Frankly, ridiculous. And Magnus won the rapid tie breaks, which doesn't make any sense because it's slow chess world championship. Deciding the result on a rapid match, that doesn't make any sense. That's silly. Now, Greg Shahade, who's one of the craziest persons in chess, I say in chess because he doesn't play chess anymore, but he has a lot of ideas, and the crazier his ideas are, the more I like them, okay? And his ideas are all crazy, so I like them. So here's what Greg suggested to avoid nonsense at the end. And no, they're never going to do it because I like it. If I didn't like it, they'd probably do it right away. Greg says they should have the rapid tie break before the World Championship. See who wins that. Then, if the match is a tie, the person who won the rapid wins the match. So the guy who lost the rapid knows in the slow chess he has to win. He can't be like, let's just draw all the games and go to the tie breaks, because you already lost the tie breaks. That way people are playing for more wins, and you don't have rapid necessarily deciding who the champion is. Obviously, the two ways to settle it that aren't rapid is play slow chess forever until somebody wins, which potentially could never happen. Probably it would. And the other way, which is the old way, was the world champion retains his title. And no matter how stupid and dumb the system is, it cannot compete with the stupidity of the 1950s and 60s. It can't compete. Nobody can compete with it. And the recipient of this stupidity, the one who made the most off of it was 50s and 60s. What's that? Botvinnik is correct. Okay, now listen to the advantages Botvinnik had. If he won the match, he won the match. If he drew the match, he won the match. If he drew, then he's the world champion, the other guy's gone. If he loses the match, he gets a rematch. What? So he gets draw odds, and if he loses, he gets a rematch. What? So as a consequence, when Botvinnik started becoming world champion after Alekhine died, World War II ended, and they had this ridiculous tournament that had like 5,000 rounds, and Botvinnik won that tournament, became world champion. After that happened, and they started having matches, the reigning world champion never won a match. Never. Never. When Botvinnik was world champion, he never won a world championship match. When Smyslov and Tal beat Botvinnik and they had the rematch, Botvinnik wasn't world champion anymore, so he won the rematch. Also, he drew matches with Bronstein and possibly Smyslov. All right, so anyway, the point is Botvinnik had this huge advantage that is ridiculous. Giving the guy draw odds, that's ridiculous. Giving him a rematch if he loses and draw odds, what? Okay, so now what they do, yeah. Yeah, but Karpov didn't lose his matches, but yeah. But yeah, he did lose, that's right, he lost to, he said that Karpov had this privilege. Yeah, that's right, when Karpov lost to Kasparov, Karpov and Kasparov just played a match every year. I didn't know who the world champion was, just they kept playing matches. They played like 175 games of matches, like 5 matches. All right, and eventually this system is silly, so now we replaced it with another silly system, because you gotta replace it. And one of the issues that happened in the first Karpov-Kasparov match is it was the first to win 6 games, and nobody won 6 games, and they played for 6 months. Okay, and Fischer wanted the rules to be first to win 10 games. And also Fischer had some crazy rule that if it was 9-9, then he wins or something. Because like 10-9, that's not really beating somebody. I don't know, he had some crazy rule. All right, they didn't do any of that. And Fischer argued, my rules, although they may be crazy, are less crazy than Botvinnik playing 37, and he's right, but okay. So the crazy rule here is they're playing 14 games instead of 12. I'm always in favor of more games. And I actually like the system where they play 24 games. I like that because that's what I grew up with. And then it's unlikely to be 12-12, possible, but unlikely. The more games you have, the less likely it's going to be tied. And after the 14-game match, if it's 7-7, then they do something. The prize fund is $2 million, split 60-40. Now, my understanding of FIDE, and it doesn't say that here, is they got to get their cut, right? And if you want to be part of the FIDE, hierarchy, president, vice president, then you have to watch all the Godfather movies several times. It's required, and then you'll learn how to get your cut, because they basically try to steal as much money as possible, okay? And they do a good job. So I don't believe that the players are getting I don't believe it. I'll never believe it. Even if it happens, I won't believe it. I believe FIDE is going to say, oh, there's this fee and this fee. Okay. Now, there were other bids, but obviously Dubai must have paid the most under the table to the FIDE president. So, yeah, there's an Expo 2020 even though it's in 2021, because they delayed that for a year also. And I've been to Dubai twice. I highly recommend it. Dubai's the best. I love Dubai for many, many reasons. Some people don't agree with some of their politics, but when I travel, I want to get some good food. So I like Dubai. Okay, and then if you're a millionaire, you can stay at the fancy hotel. If you're not, then you can't. Too bad. Now, this is the funniest thing I read today, and I forgot about it because it was months ago. This is a world championship. Therefore, Russia is not allowed to compete in world championships because of the drug abuse and so forth. So he's not allowed to represent Russia. So Nepomniachtchi is representing FIDE. Okay, so it's Norway versus FIDE. It's going to have the FIDE flag next to him, the Russian flag not allowed. Okay, that's the way it is. And this has happened in sports before, and I'm going to tell you a little aside that actually happened in the UAE, total coincidence. So only in the UAE do these things happen, but it's a coincidence. I went to the UAE twice, and the first time I was playing in a tournament that was the World Cities Team Championship. And our city was Chicago, but we can never talk about that. Okay, anyway, and it was at a 5-star hotel, and it was great. Then I was there next year, coincidentally, in the World's Youth. I was a coach, okay? So I'm there, and this is both in Al Ain, which is like, 50 miles from Dubai. Okay, it's a small town. So in Al Ain, since it's the World's Youth, and there's thousands of kids and parents and coaches, and they didn't know 5-star hotel. It's at a dorm, and they didn't provide enough food. That's a long, complicated story. Anyway, so the Israeli Chess Federation, sometimes they don't want to go to Dubai, and sometimes Dubai doesn't want them to come. Depends on, So they were allowed to come to the World Youth, and they said, we're coming. Then the next week, they're like, nah, we're not going to. Then the next week, okay. They changed their mind like 4 times. Eventually, they decided to show up. Now, the Dubai organizers thought there could be violence. People wouldn't like Israelis going to the UAE. So they had secret security from the UAE escort them to the tournament, but the dorms weren't safe. So they stayed at the 5-star hotel with security. And they didn't play under the Israeli flag. They didn't want people to see that. They played under the FIDE flag. So people wouldn't know they were Israeli. Nothing happened, but it was for security reasons. So when you go to the UAE, sometimes you're playing under the FIDE flag. That's the way it goes. Okay, I still recommend it. All right, now what I want to do is I want to look at games that Magnus played against Jan, but let me find the thing I'm supposed to do. Give me like 5 years. No, I figured it out much quicker than usual. That's probably it, I don't know. Could be. Okay, people on the internet, can you see that white just played d4? All right, good. Okay, so unfortunately, even though they've played about 75 times, a lot of those games, they were under the age of 20, sometimes way under the age of 20, and 90% of the games are bullet, blitz, or rapid. They don't have a lot of games in slow chess where they were both really good. And in 2020, they played 0 games of slow chess, because COVID. This year, they've played 1 game, and it was in a tournament that's ongoing. It's going on right now. And it was about, 5 days ago. So we'll show that game last. And in 2019, I found 3 games they played that were in slow chess. Now, it's well known that Jan has a plus score against Magnus, which is good for World Championship. You have a plus score against the world champion. But most of those games were rapid, blitz, or when they were like 13. Now, what have you done for me lately? In slow chess, between 2019 and now, Magnus has a win and 3 draws. So that's the latest. But if you look at their whole career, Jan is, and I think Jan is a really good opponent for Magnus. Magnus is certainly the favorite. I went on one website and they did math and they said Magnus is an 86% favorite, which is incorrect. He's, 55 to 60% favorite. He's a good favorite, but it's chess. You make a bad move, you lose. Now, Jan has advantages over other potential challengers. Jan's the same age, so he's not like 18 and up and coming and hasn't reached his peak yet. Jan's been playing Super GMs for 15 years. And he's not afraid of Magnus. He's beaten Magnus many times. And his style is opposite to Magnus's, which is good. Okay? And we won't see 14 draws because that's not how Jan rolls. Okay? So Jan could get totally destroyed if he plays like himself, or he could win a lot of games and win the match if he plays like himself. And if you remember the first Karpov-Kasparov match, even though you probably weren't born yet, no. They played many matches before you were born. Many, yeah. Karpov, after 29 games, was up 5-0 with 24 draws, right? Then in the matches later, then Kasparov was drawing and winning those matches. He didn't lose any after that. And even after the 29 games, Kasparov didn't lose any more games. They played 20 more. So it's very strange when the styles are opposite. That's good for us. We see interesting games. Okay, this game was played at Tata Steel in 2019. Magnus was white, and this is what you want to see in the World Championship, is a game like this. And I remember when Karpov played Kasparov, and people were like, "Man, is Kasparov going to play the Benoni and the Benko and the this and the that?" A grandmaster said, "You're not going to see a white pawn on d5 in this match. That's not going to happen." Right? Now, in this match, we may see a white pawn on d5 because, that's how he rolls. Now, Nepomniachtchi likes to play the Grunfeld, and he's playing an anti-Grunfeld f3, and he played e6, which is a weird move that MVL likes to play. And they transpose into a Benoni, which isn't something that Jan normally plays, but it's double-edged and crazy, and that's not Magnus's style. So they just transpose into a regular Benoni. Okay, and White's played the knight e2 f3 line, which isn't super popular. But okay, and man, we don't see Benonis in the World Championship. It's not possible. Obviously Fischer played the Benoni against Spassky. Somebody said something? If you can call that a World Championship. Yeah. Go Kramnik. By the way, I'm glad that you mentioned Kramnik. My ears here, you guys are confused. You said Kramnik played it against Leko. What's funny is, in this tournament, the Tata Steel Masters in 2019, you know who came in clear last? Kramnik. And the truth hurts. You take chess off for a few years, you play a Super GM tournament, and then they beat you up. Okay, so knight g3, getting his bishop out. Now, the gawking rabble on the internet, knight e8, he wants to play f5, and probably knight c7 and b5. The gawking rabble on the internet claimed bishop f4 was a novelty at the time. But I didn't check into that because that would require seconds of work. So bishop f5 is a weird move to me because if black wants to play f5, I don't want my bishop on f4. So I don't know. All right. Okay, rook b8, and then he played c4. So black didn't play f5. It's hard to play f5 with the knight on g3 because after the trade, that just weakens black's king side. So I guess Magnus wasn't worried. Now, again, this is what I'm hoping to see in the World Championship. Remember I said hoping. Because Jan can either make all the games insane, or he can play like Karyakin and Fabi, and games are about equal, and try to outplay his opponent, that's normally not a way to beat Magnus. Normally the way to beat Magnus is he's confused, not he's slightly better and he's pressing. That's not a good way to win. So he played c4. Yeah. What's that? Almost, yeah. That's the key word. No. That's right. No, I mean, Fabi's actually really good at playing in Magnus's style, but I wouldn't say that's what Jan, is good at. Not as good as Magnus. So c4 is a pawn sacrifice. He wants to get his knight to c5. If you don't take the pawn, then the knight has other squares. It's a typical Benoni kind of move. And he's like, all right, thanks. Check, threatening the b pawn and the king. And I guess Magnus decided if he plays normally after queen takes, black's got a lot of threats there on the diagonal. So in this position, it's clear to me that Magnus already realized he was going to sack the exchange. Probably he watches my channel and always sack the exchange. Okay, and obviously, if I had to pick black's best minor piece, I'm picking the bishop on g7. So Magnus defended his b pawn, and then that wins the exchange. But it gets rid of black's best piece. Black's down a pawn. This pawn's isolated and pinned. White has a better center, etc., etc. Okay, and so always play bishop f1. And they went into this ending where white has two bishops and an extra pawn. Black has an isolated pawn. Black doesn't have his beautiful bishop, but he's up the exchange. So it's an exchange sacrifice. Okay, and they just played sort of normal chess, and things went, I think, as they should, and the game ended peacefully after lots and lots and lots of trading. Hopefully, we won't see lots and lots of trading in the World Championship in 2 months. And yeah, they did what we call vacuum the board. They traded everything. If bishop takes c4, rook takes, so played this. Knight d2, confusing the audience. In this position, if we play knight d2, then rook takes b7. So he goes here first now. Yeah. Magnus didn't feel like sacking another exchange. Now he plays this move, which is funny, because now he'll be down a rook in this position. White's down a whole rook, but white has two connected passed pawns. White has 3 pawns for the rook, and black's knight on f6 can't. I mean, where's that going? So very interesting play from Magnus, I guess, trying to get chances even to win down a rook, but that didn't work because Nepomniachtchi stacked a piece here to make the game a draw. It's a strange rook sacrifice because white can slowly play rook b7 and then push his b pawn. And whoops, and this bishop, yeah, stop that. No, the bishop is just really good on d4. This pawn's really strong. Once this pawn gets here, black's rooks aren't very menacing. I mean, to keep an eye on the pawn. So he sacrifices a piece to make the game a draw. And now the a pawn can't be defended. And it's going to be a position where nobody can really do anything. And Magnus played a nice defensive move here. I mean, Magnus has isolated pawns and doubled pawns, so he's not really playing for a win. So he played the move knight d1, accompanied with a draw offer. The idea is the bishop defends the pawn forever. The knight on e3 defends this pawn forever. And my knight can be defended. So what's black supposed to do? It's opposite bishops, so... And black has 3 isolated pawns. So the engine actually says this is all zeros. And that's the kind of game that we want to see in the World Championship, where both sides sacrificed material, but the engine says, yeah, that's pretty correct. That's reasonable. And Magnus had an excellent tournament. He won this event easily. I think Nepomniachtchi tied for 3rd, but also reasonable. But this was before Jan qualified to play him, so we didn't know he would be a challenger yet. Now this game was a draw, but it was super exciting. And even in the final position, either player could have played on. And I'm thinking if the players were below 2,400, they would play on and anything could happen. But I guess they realized that not much can happen here. All right, now normally I press F11, but it's terrible. Yeah, I want to look at that game last. Okay, can people on the internet see E4? Excellent. This was played in Croatia, also in 2019. Jan was white, and Magnus plays for the win. He doesn't play the Berlin or some Rui Lopez. He plays the Sicilian. And the point of knight c3 is to avoid the Sveshnikov, which Magnus played in the last World Championship and knows everything. And he plays e5, so white can never play d4. And this is another line that Magnus always plays sort of weird in the Sicilian sidelines, so his opponent has no prep. And Nepomniachtchi likes to play weird. So this is why I'm looking forward to this match. I mean, Magnus is just moving pawns, and Jan is playing h4 early. So, and that's the thing. A lot of people, like me, for example, if I had white against Magnus, I would make the game as boring as possible, and he would outplay me and win. But I would think if I made the game exciting, I would lose quicker. And Jan wants to make the game exciting because I think that's his best chance. And then when it doesn't work, it looks bad. When it works, it looks great. But okay, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, put it in H again. G5. It looks like two kids are playing, but it's the World Championship, guys. Knight H2 is a very important positional move, especially in this structure. Sometimes they play knight D2 with the same idea, which is to get the knight to E3 or G3. And you either do it this way, or the way that Magnus did, or that Jan did, which is knight H2, and he's going to go to F1, and he's going to control these white squares that, white has sort of a bind on. And hopefully, from Jan's point of view, that bishop's going to be bad forever. Okay. And he played knight G4. I guess he's going here. Okay. And he does. Castles. He wants to play F5, and that move is illegal. Now, when I was 9 years old, I was playing in a tournament in Lansing, Michigan, and I was white, and I moved, I got a 10 or so. I played F4, and I hit the clock, and I'm waiting for my opponent to move, and after about a minute, I noticed his bishop on C5 was checking my king. So I was like, oh, my move's illegal. And he didn't say anything. I put the pawn back on F2, hit the button back on my clock. He said nothing. I was like 9 or 10 years old. And then I played king H1. Right? And I guess Magnus knows that story because he played king H8. And I won that game. Yeah, the one where I made an illegal move. I'm the best. Okay. So he played G4, which is a very committal move. He doesn't want Magnus to play F5, so Magnus isn't going to play F5. And it's all blocked up and confusing. All right, so Magnus is like, okay, there's the queen side too. Let's play on the queen side. He says, no, block that up too. All right. So not much happening. Never play F3, so now you know who won the game. Okay, and if the knights get traded, Magnus could take with the e-pawn and open up his bishop, which obviously white doesn't want. So he plays queen b1. Now, queen b1 is a weird move, but I was actually watching the game live. Jan actually tried to castle with his queen, and they were like, what are you doing? And he said, cocaine is a hell of a... but he wants to play queen a2 and get on this diagonal and eventually castle queenside, I think. Still, queen b1 is a strange move. Bishop e6, queen a2, rook g1, stopping any potential sacrifices, or so he thought. And this just looks like a boring draw. looks like. Okay. And eventually, you will know Magnus is the Lord when he busts open the position. Okay, and he's still waiting for bishop takes, pawn takes, and opening up his bishop. And so Magnus plays b5. And again, it looks like nothing's happening. Magnus keeps trying to open the position because of his beautiful knight on f4, and his king is safer. I mean, that king's safe. Yeah, I guess after a6, b5, rook b8, he changed his mind. Yeah. Because then his king's probably getting in trouble. His king's pretty safe on the king's side. But Magnus keeps trying to open the position up. Magnus tries to find chances in positions a lot of people just like, all right, it's a boring draw. Yeah. Okay, so he sacrifices a pawn, and he takes the knight on f4, which is not good. Unfortunately, it's going to open up anyway, one way or the other. Either the b file is going to get open, and the knight on f4 is just too good. It can't stay there forever. And he did take with the e pawn, and he probably thought it's opposite bishops. My king goes to g2, and what's the problem? What do you want? Okay, and this is where Magnus played f5. And that's an easy move to miss. And what I find funny about that is I think like that's a Jan kind of move. I think if Jan was black, he would be looking at f5. But when he's white, it's a strange move. It's not the first move you look at. So maybe he didn't look at it. And it really busts open white's king. And now, you know, the bishop has d4. If you take this way, the queen has e3. If you take this way, I can play g4 and come in here. And after f5, white is actually on a big defensive now because his king is just much weaker than black's king. Black's king is perfectly safe. Yeah, on my headphones, he was wondering about this. Yeah, if only I could take my rook and put it, then. Yeah. It looks like it's too much for a rook. But yeah, sacrificing a pawn, that's less, invasive there. Now, queen h4 is annoying, and bishop d4 is annoying. However, white has good defense with his queen on a2, except for one thing. That's why these attacks work. Like this queen's trapped on a2, it can't help out. So Magnus is like, all right, I'm a queen up. Let's get that king. And Jan said no talking. Okay. d4, stopping bishop d4. He's killing Magnus's bishop. Then he runs away. Well, he tries to. Trying is the first step to failure. All right, now he's got a Sophie's choice, except this is serious. Okay, so king f1, queen h1 mate. So that's no good. So you got a choice, king here, which looks like it loses to queen here immediately. That resigns. I guess this is checkmate. So I guess he has to take with the king. Well, wait, he didn't take with the king? He played here? Wait, what? Oh, maybe he resigned here. Yeah, he wouldn't play king e1 and get mated. Let's not resign. Let's go here. Let's see. It looks like there should be several ways to win. I guess this wins. Check, check. Bishop takes d4. That looks pretty winning. Yeah. Yeah, now we have to sack the exchange, and then, white's position is ridiculous. Yeah. All right, so it was funny, it was like a blocked position, and after f5, white just fell apart. Well, it's possible he already had fallen apart. But the queen a2 idea just didn't work at all. That queen just got trapped and his king got exposed, and Magnus exposed him with f5, proving Magnus can not only win 80-move drawn endgames, he can refute somebody who's playing a little willy-nilly. You.
did White have a way to stop f5 before the move he played? Like, instead of their rook 2?
Oh, instead of rook d1? Well, I'm guessing when he played rook d1, he wanted to play d4. So I think, yeah, he just underestimated f5. Yeah, unfortunately, we'll look at that. We have another question here. Yeah, I think maybe king g2 is the safest. Because then if f5 and I take with this pawn, maybe I'm surviving. Maybe. Okay, so the question in my ears was, after f5, let's ignore it and play d4. Okay, well, I think black's still crashing through by doing this. And then my rook has f4, and that looks, it just looks terrible. Yeah. Now, what was suggested is better than what he did, because he lost in like 4 moves. So, yeah. I mean, almost anything you say is better than what he did, because he resigned like in 3 moves. So, yeah. Sometimes when somebody plays f5 and you're not expecting it, and it's good, you're like, oh man, you know, I thought I was doing fine, and now I'm like, how do I stop this nonsense? But I agree that the way he played this way, that was pathetic. I just lost right away. But yeah, Magnus has a good imagination to find something like f5. You got to open up the white king, otherwise it's going to be a draw, because there's opposite bishops and it's all blocked. And in the last 3 years, that's the only slow game they played that was decisive. They've played lots of decisive rapid and blitz. But they're not playing rapid and blitz, they're playing a slow chess. Now, sometimes when Jan plays slow chess, he's also playing rapid and blitz. Like today. Today, he was white against the guy in last place, Tari, who gets invited because he lives in Norway, in the Norway tournament. And Tari loses every game. And with black, he crushed Jan today, because Jan plays crazy and fast, and it wasn't good. It was bad. So, you know, when a guy's 2,600 FIDE, and you're like, man, I'm going to crush him because I'm 2,800 FIDE, and then you play bad, then watch it. If you play badly and you underestimate your opponent because they're doing badly and they're low rated, you know, sometimes they play well, and then you're like, darn. I mean, Tari's winning a lot of games, he just loses them. But he was winning today and he did not lose. So, and who congratulated Tari after the game? Magnus. Because they're countrymen and he beat Jan, so haha, my teammate can beat you. I'm gonna beat you easy later, or something like that. Okay. And then, what do I want to look at? The Sinquefield Cup in 2019. Can the internet people say D4? Okay, good. So this was in the Sinquefield Cup 2 years ago. We just had a Sinquefield Cup. Did they play the Sinquefield Cup? I'm getting St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. Yeah, the Sinquefield Cup ended 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, this was the one in 2019. All right, so now we have a Grunfeld. He didn't play F3 this time. Didn't work out last time he drew, so never play F3. Okay, and they played a million moves of theory in a Grunfeld, which is the style, and Magnus played the offbeat Queen A4 check. Okay, and black can play anything, but he played knight D7, C5, and these pieces are in strange places. Normally the queen's here, and the black knight is here. So a little stranger than usual, but still with the Grunfeld themes. Queen A3 attacking the pawn. And now, after bishop G4, which is a typical Grunfeld move, you're trying to put tremendous pressure here. Jan showed that he's not afraid. He doesn't play moves based on who his opponent is, and that's the mistake about 95% of chess players make. They're like, oh, this guy's 2,000 and I'm 1,300, therefore, or I'm 1,300, my opponent's 400. So you play different moves because you're so confident in one case, in the other one you're so afraid. Jan doesn't do that. Jan just plays like whoever he is, which is crazy. And he calculates, and he believes his calculation. And when he's wrong, he can lose quickly. And when he's right, he can beat 2,700 players with black without any problem. Because he trusts himself, he plays the way he plays. He doesn't say, I'm playing Magnus, so therefore I'm going to play, like scared. He don't do that. So in this position, he did something I would never do. He took that. Okay, I ain't taking that. I ain't doing that. There's a lot of stuff I'll do. I'll do anything to win at chess, but I won't do that. Anyone? You? Yeah. You got it. All right. Yeah. All right. And I'm a vegan. I'm still quoting Meatloaf. Terrible. By the way, Meatloaf used to be a vegetarian. Used to. Yeah, truth hurts. Okay. Now, when you play bishop takes d4, it's either opening prep or he calculates. He's like, yep, that's fine. Now, let me tell you something about this position. When you make a move in chess, and the move, it could be good, it wins a pawn, it could be bad, your bishop's pinned. You actually need to compare it to the alternatives. The alternatives are all bad. If black doesn't do something crazy, then white has 2 center pawns, and white has the 2 bishops. I mean, strategically, in 5 moves, white's going to be winning. White's going to play bishop e3 and rook c1 and d5. And these pawns need to be babysat. So when he played bishop f3, he knew he was taking on d4. And if you're playing bishop g4 and you're not going to take on f3, you're not going to take on d4, that sort of defeats the so it's consistent to do it, it's just risky. Okay, he played the move e5, which opens up his bishop here. And it's hard to defend all of this because your queen's busy defending that, confusing the audience. And he played knight c4, super aggressive, leaving all of his pieces hanging. I'm scared looking at it. I mean, I'm not taking black here. All my pieces are hanging and pinned. What? See, now you're talking. Yeah. Now, after queen d3 suggested in my ear, you're not pinning the bishop anymore, so I could just take the rook. Yeah, I'm sufficiently defended. Yeah, very lucky. But yeah, this looks good. That looks good. Okay, so he defends his knight, attacks the rook on f8, and then he takes this rook. Now, if I was either color, I'd resign. Because I can't, I'm too old for this. Yeah. Okay, well, you have to take the queen. And then he escapes with his rook by recapturing. So he has 2 rooks for a queen, but his king looks a little iffy there. His bishop is weird. I have the 2 bishops. This is hanging, etc. And he's like, no, this is fine. And, if you're going to beat Magnus, I think playing like this. Now, I'm not saying you are going to beat Magnus, but if you want to beat Magnus, it's probably going to be like this, not by getting a slight advantage, then a clear advantage, then a winning advantage, then having good technique. That's what Magnus does. So that's not a way to beat him. You can confuse him, and he's like, what is this nonsense? And then, that's why Firouzja wins a lot of games. That's why Jan wins a lot of games. That's why Mamedyarov wins a lot of games, because their opponents don't understand what's happening. When you play Magnus, you know what's happening. I'm worse, I'm much worse, I'm lost. I shake hands, I go cry. Okay, so Magnus plays e6, confusing everybody. He wants to get at that king. His queen's coming in here, he's coming to get him. Also, if he doesn't play e6, this pawn's gonna be captured anyway, so you might as well mess up black's king. Knight e5, ignoring everything. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And then again, it's a trade fest. They just trade everything. And it's a draw. Hooray for everybody. Yeah. And now nobody's better. I have an answer. Well, the problem is this pawn is not defended if you ever take this. So, I mean, white can just move his king here and do nothing. I mean, this queen's defending this and attacking this, so you can't, That's correct. That was different because white wasn't a pawn up and there weren't all these pawns over here. Yeah, that was just 3 on 3 on the same side. Yeah, right. Now then you have good winning chances, but here white has a pawn extra, and you can't take this pawn without giving this pawn away. So then, yeah, the problem is if you have 3 against 3 on the same side or 2 against 2, and at some point I can get my rooks here and I can win a pawn and you take it, you win the 2 rooks, black's gonna be a pawn up on the king side, but not here, because if you take this and I take this, I got this guy. So yeah, there's too much for him to do. And with these pawns like this, black's king is gonna get perpetualed all the time. There's just no safety there. This is much safer than this. The king is too exposed. But yeah, normally if 2 rooks against a queen, it's even pawns, the 2 rooks can press. So like if this pawn was gone on a2, then black would be playing for a win for years. This game would still be going on. You gotta try to queen that b pawn. Yeah, or if this pawn was gone, he'd be playing for a win. But unfortunately for Jan, white has both pawns. But anyway, exciting game considering it was a draw. Again, not like some other draws with super GMs. Okay, last but not least was the game they played last week. It's a very current lecture. Okay, this game was just played at the Norway tournament. Currently, as I'm making this video, Report's in first and Carlsen's in second. Carlsen just won 3 games in a row, including beating Report today. Now, what's confusing about this tournament is the scoring system. If I tell you the scoring system, you'll have to like ball up in the corner in a fetal position and then suck your thumb and be like, what's happening? Okay, so if you win your game, you get 3 points. If you lose the game, you get 0. If the game is a draw, you play an Armageddon game after that. That's quicker time control. And the winner of the Armageddon game gets 1.5 points for the round, and the loser gets 1.
It's an Armageddon game for half a point?
Yes. Okay, so what happened was in the first 3 or 4 rounds, Magnus drew all of his games and then won all the Armageddon games. So he had 6 out of his first 4 rounds. He's at 1.5 every round. Rapport was winning all of his games. So Rapport's getting 3 points a round by winning. So Rapport's way in first. Then Magnus is like, all right, I'll win some slow games. So he won the last 3 slow games. So he's caught up. He's only half a point behind, which is nothing in this scoring system. If he wins next round and Rapport loses, he's 2.5 points ahead of him. So it's very confusing. Yeah. And the more it's confusing, the less we know what's going on. So, all right. Anyway, this game was played. This game was a draw. Then they played the Armageddon game and Magnus won. Okay, now here, it's very unclear what the players should do, especially as part of this lecture, because they're probably thinking, Ben's gonna lecture on our match, what do we do? Now, are they gonna show their prep for the World Championship match? Probably not. However, Jan played something he normally doesn't play and had a lot of prep. So he's gonna make Magnus think this might come in the World Championship. Magnus didn't play, Jan didn't play wild and crazy. He played the most boring opening known to man. Karen doesn't know it because she's a woman. The Berlin. Hooray, go Jan. He's like, everybody's doing it. If everybody's doing it, there's a lot of guys doing it. What movie is that?
I don't know.
Anybody? No? Risky Business, 1983. What? Risky Business. Yeah. If everybody's doing it, there's a lot of guys doing it. Okay, so this is the main line of this opening, the Berlin. And, okay, they played one of the lines. And at some point in the press room, Jan's coach, I know his name too. Yeah, he's 26, 70 or something. He said, oh yeah, Jan has no, like at some point he's like, yeah, this is no problem for Jan. It was after this. Always retreat, bishop c8. Now, I've seen a lot of Berlins. I don't remember seeing bishop e6, knight here, bishop c8. I don't remember that. Rook d1 check isn't the most common move, that's correct. Yeah. Well, I mean, Magnus is white, so he probably knows, what he's doing. Right, I mean, they don't play rook d1 check very often now, is what he's saying, yeah. Okay, and then he went back there, so that's good. Now he gets sort of like a normal, kind of Berlin. Just white played knight g5 to f3, and black played bishop e6 to c8. So now they get closer to time control. Okay, so black wants to trade everything and put his bishop on f5, attacking the c-pawn, trade the rooks on d8, and if there's no pieces on the board, it's king versus king, it's probably a draw. And we don't see Jan playing for a draw with black and playing solidly. That's just unusual for him. Yeah. And yeah, Vladimir Potkin, I think is his coach. He said, oh yeah, this no problem for Jan now. Ridiculous. Just no way Magnus will beat Jan in this position. Never play f3. So yeah, I mean, he just kept trading everything. Good. Yeah, and it's not really what Jan does, but maybe Magnus has to think about this now for the World Championship. Not only do I have to prepare for crazy nonsense, now I gotta beat the Berlin. I can't have Jan drawing me every game with black. That's not good. But he proved he can play as boring as anybody. So yeah, he's like, what's the problem? 2 bishops, what else? Yeah, so they didn't do anything, then they traded everything. Yeah, then they always repeat. Check here. If king takes e5, rook d7 is pretty annoying. So always repeat. And then draw by reputation, as somebody in my class once said. They got big reputations. So Jan easily drew that game. As was pointed out in my headphones, white did not play the most testing line. And Jan had no trouble drawing with black. And what's funny is, since this game, Jan just gets crushed every game. Jan's playing terrible since this game, and Magnus wins all of his games. I think Jan lost 3 games in a row, and Magnus won 3 games in a row. So the truth hurts. Yeah. But okay, I think the only thing that matters is when they play slow chess with each other, what's going to happen. This was weird that black played a known boring line, traded all the pieces, and drew easily. What is he, Wesley So and Geary rolled up into one? I mean, because that's not what Jan normally does. But he's like, yeah, I can do that. I don't normally do that, but I want to prove I can draw with black in the Berlin like everybody else can. And then what are you going to do? Is Magnus going to be like, all right, I'll play d4. Now, what I recommend, which I've been recommending for like 9 years now, is in this position, you should play d3. Okay, that's the way to play for a win. Now, what's funny is today, if you're watching live, this was the game Magnus versus Richard Report. If you didn't see the game, or if you forgot, you won't guess what black did here. You won't guess it. You won't. If you saw the game, then maybe you'll guess it. If you didn't see the game, you will not. You could guess every legal move in order of how strong you think they are. This will be near the end. Are you guys ready? You sitting down? Yeah. Here. Yeah, that's what he played. So the idea is, I want my knight to go to g6, and I want to play c6 and say your bishop's stupid. And the problem with this move is after c6, your bishop's attacked. If you move your bishop, queen a5 check wins the knight. See, that's why Rapport, before today, was number 6 in the world. He's winning all of his games. So Magnus played a normal move, like, I don't know, castles. And, like something, and they played really boring, and Magnus won a long end game where he was winning easily. But yeah, knight e7, I was like, what? What's happening? I think it's been played before, I don't. But I like the way, I always say d3, 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 if you want to win. Magnus goes into the main line and draws, then he plays d3 and he wins. Yeah. But I've been saying d3 for years. This is how you play for a win with white. This is the famous game. You could, he was crushed before you were born. This is the famous game, Fabiano Caruana versus me. Man, I got crushed in the Pro Chess League. Horrible. Man, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I mean, except other times I've played Fabi. All right, so I think Magnus is 55 to 60% favorite in the match, and most people who are my peers or strong players think it's more than that. They think, 70%, They don't think 86% like this mathematical thing on the internet, which didn't make a lot of sense. I'm glad it's 14 games instead of 12, but I would like to see more than 14 games. That's still not enough, but all right. Hopefully the better player wins, and we will see in the end of November which one of them gets a Thanksgiving present. Obviously, Carlsen gets the present first because his birthday is 6 days after the match starts. You can't lose on your birthday. That was terrible. Thanks for watching. For people on YouTube, please like and subscribe and click for more videos. This is Grandmaster Finegold with the Chess Club and Scholastic Center of Atlanta, sponsored by us. We sponsored our own lecture. Yeah, we're the best. Sponsored by Karen, and I'll see you guys next time with more lectures. Bye, everybody.